Chapter 41 Vague Encounter. Jacob quickly sprang into action as a container appeared in his hand, and he quickly collected the arrow-tailed jaguar's blood before it was absorbed into the ground. His infinity pendant space was limited and that big jaguar's carcass can't fit in. That was why he was carrying 2 containers inside to collect blood and heart, so they won't go to waste. Furthermore, the infinity pendant was the perfect place to store these things because it could keep them in the same condition they were stored. This was the biggest advantage he had of this storage space, and he wanted to increase it, so he could also store pig head inside if needed. Notwithstanding, he quickly collected the sufficient amount of blood he needed for the extraction process, and also cut open the jaguar's chest and acquired its heart, and throw it into the blood-filled container as well before storing it away. Sigh, finally now I don't have to worry about anything. Jacob breathed in relief before a cold drop fell on his head and he looked at the dark sky. Within a few moments, heavy rain poured down and washed away all the blood on the group and completely soaked both of them. Jacob couldn't help but close his eyes and enjoy this rain shower after a very, very long time, and a distant memory surfaced in his mind. It was a dark, rainy night when a middle-aged man was dragged into the rain by a beautiful woman as she laughs lovingly with elation while pulling this middle-aged man around despite his burly build. The middle-aged man helplessly said, "Hope, let's go inside. What if you catch a cold?" Hope giggles in excitement and retorted, "JS, you're always cooped up in that shitty lab of yours, or tanning fields. You have to enjoy nature something and make happy memories." JS replied with a faint smile and pulled Hope into her embrace. "Really, I guess you're right. But what if I forget? Don't you need to do something to make it an everlasting memory?" Hope wrapped her slender arms around JS's muscular neck and looked lovingly into his eyes and seductively said, "We have never done it in rain." Rumble. Jacob's eyes snapped open with a hint of melancholy as the thunderclap rang. He looked at Pighead, who was standing beside him like a log, as his blood was gushing out from that deep wound on his chest and washing away with the rain. A bottle filled with black liquid appeared in his hand and he gave it to Pighead. "Drink it, at this rate you'll bleed to death." He had stored some black liquid just for emergencies like these before moving out. After drinking it, the blood from the injury suddenly stopped, and the wound was mending, but very slowly. "Let's go back and pick up the carcass. This rain won't stop any time soon, and there might be some predators appearing in this rain soon." Jacob's command coolly, and they walked toward the hideout. Although most animals will hide when rained, this place was not ordinary, so he didn't want to put his life at risk, and he already got what he wanted, so there wasn't any need to be greedy. To make sure Pighead's wound won't get worse, they move at a slow pace, and they took triple the time to reach the hideout position from the time they traveled before. However, Jacob's footstep came to an abrupt halt at this moment while his eyes narrowed into slits. Thump. Thump. Footsteps. His hearing has become extremely sensitive after his first injection, and even in this rain he could hear small sounds from a few tens of meters away, and these sounds were extremely startling. Jacob knit his eyebrows together because these large footsteps were also approaching his hideout and at a quick pace, and if he tried to enter the hideout now, he'll meet the owners of those footsteps before he could close the door. "Let's hide," Jacob quickly commanded Pighead, and they slowly creep behind the large tree only a few meters away from the hideout. Jacob wanted to wait and let whoever it was past before going back since they won't be able to find the hidden door. However, he soon saw something which left him in horror and gobsmacked. Even from his place, he saw 2 large cocked heads appearing from the trees, and they were extremely tall. Even from his place, he could see those 2 towering figures and his heart trembled when a word came to his mind. Giants. Instantly, more information flooded what he read from Decca's journal, and he felt goosebumps. Could they be mountain giants, a rarer race, and also the ones who Decca stole the Immortica from? But how did they appear here, so far from their home and so close to this hideout? Did that bastard make some kind of mistake and reveal himself? Jacob suddenly felt like killing Decca again in the culliest way possible. Because if what he guessed was true, then he was in massive trouble right now, and if he didn't leave, there won't be any chance for him in the future. He didn't dare to face those massive mountain giants. No. He didn't even think about it because he wasn't even the size of their waistline, and they could easily crush them like an ant. Now all he could pray was those giants won't know about the hideout yet and only stumbled upon this area and just passed by. So, he could quickly get some more black liquid and other important stuff and leave this place. However, a furtive voice that sounded from their feet made Jacob's heart palpitate. "Milords, this is the place, and the hidden door is only a few meters away. Follow me." "Fuck," Jacob cursed, and he knew he has been discovered by someone else, and even though he can't see the person because of all those long bushes, he knew that might be the culprit who led those giants here. Chapter 42 Storming the Hideout. Just how in the world that fucker, Decker, made this kind of grave mistake. But it didn't seem they come prepared or sure about the hideout. Because if they knew Decker was hiding there, then there won't be just two giants coming here after what he did. Then this means this is just a scouting party led by someone who might be the one who found Decker's traces without him knowing. And from that tone, it's clear he didn't know who the owner of that hideout was or my identity. They also seemed to discover it recently, or they could have come sooner. Furthermore, they're moving with caution in the rain, hiding their footsteps despite their powerful physiques. I didn't know if I'm lucky or unlucky, although I'm not present in the hideout and I have all the important things in my pendant, but those liquids and equipment will be lost. Shit. Jacob cursed in silence and bemoaned at this bad but good luck because he had avoided a calamity. But he didn't feel happy about it because he wasn't prepared for this at all, and this will also be the end of his haven. He no longer can extract heart essence and remain hidden while increasing his strength before embarking on his journey to find the exit of this mountain range. All his plans suddenly went to the gutter just because of an unknown mistake. In the end, Jacob clenched his teeth and slowly creep away from those three dangerous fellows. He knew he can't go back, and he had to flee as far as he can while he still has the chance, and the other party didn't know he wasn't inside the hideout. Pighead naturally followed him, with the carcass of the arrow-tailed jaguar on his shoulder. Jacob left in the opposite direction from where those three came from, and in this heavy rainfall, his tracks were easily washed away. Just great, first slave, and now a lost vagabond. Jacob muttered while clicking his tongue in exasperation. After they were a mile away from the hideout, Jacob increased his speed and ran at full speed without stopping. He wanted to create a vast distance between himself and them, and then found some area to spend the night before continuing his aimless journey. At Decker's hideout, the cloaked bronze goblin followed by Aaron, and Montel finally reached the place where the door was hidden. There's no trap outside, which means the maker didn't want to startle anyone and wanted to give the disguise that this is an ordinary moss floor, and it would have worked if I didn't see the smoke myself. The bronze goblin said with a hint of satire in his voice. Before he didn't dare to come close to this place, but now that he had two mountain giants beside him, he became shamelessly fearless. "Chad, stop your nonsense and made that person living here come out," Aaron vexedly said. If not because of their precaution, they would have stormed the place already. Chad didn't dare to delay and bashed on the moss floor, which was also the door to the underground facility, and he bellowed, "Anyone is there? I see this door in this stormy rain, and I humbly request to take shelter inside. I didn't have any malicious intent, and I'll pay 1 gold coin for a night's stay." Their aim was clear: as long as there wasn't any powerful hermit living here, they would storm the entire place. The weak didn't have the right to put resistance in this world. However, after Chad's torrent of heavy strikes, the door remains calm, with no noise except rain. Fuck off now, it's clear. The one inside is an ant or even that thievish goblin, and who knows, he might escape from the underground passage while we're wasting our time being careful. Let me see who dared to offend us mountain giants. Montel lose his patience because he was eager to get this hand on Decker the most, and he didn't want to let him escape if really inside. Aaron also didn't stop Montel this time, and he knew if Deck was really inside with his astute personality, he might really slip away from their hands, again. Chad quickly moved aside, and the moment he saw furious Montel move, Montel swung his gigantic fist right at the door with full force. Bang! The ground trembled slightly as water splashed everywhere, and at the place where that hammer-like fist landed, a dark hole appeared. The metallic door was lying on the bottom with a giant fist imprinted on it. "Humph, tiny hole, let me make it big." Montel sneered before he sent a volley of powerful punches and widened the hole enough for him and Aaron to fit. "Let's go." Montel took the stone staircase without waiting for Aaron or Chad. However, just as he took the third step before they suddenly hear a crackling sound under Montel's feet, and the very next moment thereafter, Montel suddenly grunted. "Bastard, a lighting trap. I'll skin that guy alive." Montel cursed and continued to move while he received a lighting blot on some steps, but they only seemed to slightly tingle him, nothing else. Gulping sounds could be heard from Chad. He knew those lighting traps were packed with almost 1,000,000 volts, but that guy was taking them with a pinch of salt. He couldn't help but wonder just how strong these giant skins were. Aaron smirked at this moment while following inside. This boorish idiot. Before long, Montel has triggered almost all the traps in the underground base. Spikes, poison arrows, poison fog. But Montel didn't even receive a scratch from them as he reached the end of the passage where the hidden room was located. However, the place was too short for him and Aaron to enter, and if they tried to funnel their way in, the entire underground cave might crumble. Aaron sternly ordered at this moment. "Chad, get your ass down there and go inside and see if there's anyone there or not. All the traps have been dealt with. Us the X-scanner. If there's an escape tunnel, let us know, post hastily." Chapter 43 Rainy Night. Somewhere on a rainy mountain, after resting and running for a full day, Jacob was fully exhausted and with the heavy rain, he was even more worried about catching some unknown disease. He was literally wearing 2 pieces of clothes right now, and even they weren't fully covering his skin. The only relief was that carcass of arrow-tail jaguar which can provide him with a good nutritious meal, and he was also thinking of turning the thick hide into a warm coat. But first, he had to find a place to hide from this rain, and the surrounding has already turned dark. Now I understand why sometimes a small roof is far better than a vast sky. Jacob thought bitterly as he continued to move slowly while looking for shelter. However, he knew it was a pipe dream to continue searching for something in this darkness where he can't even see Pig Head clearly. So he built one himself with tree leaves and branches, which took him 2 hours to compete with Pig Head's help. Although it was extremely crude, the water was still flowing through the leafy roof, but it was far better than walking into darkness aimlessly. Although I'm not feeling any cold because of my special body condition, I still have to remain cautious. Jacob mumbled as he took out a knife and skinned the large jaguar. He meticulously separated the jaguar hide, which was more like fleece, and let it wash into the rain. Then there was only meat and the animal's viscera which he threw away and only meat left. "Shit, I can't even light the fire." Jacob lamented about how there wasn't anything dry to burn when suddenly his eyes opened wide, and he mumbled, "Fire. Those guys found the hideout right after my injection, and the rain also didn't fall for the day I did the extraction process. Then didn't this mean they were drawn here by the smoke rising from the door? Although I took the precaution of doing the process at the night, it seemed I still underestimate those high-level species. Now I understand how they found the hideout. It was my own damn fault." Jacob quickly believed his hypotheses, and he was 90% sure this was the real reason he got exposed. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly because he can't cry over spilled milk anymore and ate the meat raw since it would go bad if he left it in the rain anymore. He stored as much as could in the infinity pendant and eat the rest, leaving nothing. Even he was shocked at his appetite and strange instinct to devour anything once he started to eat without caring about taste. Jacob knew he wasn't like this, but after the first hunger pang and drinking the bone marrow, he stopped caring about taste or what he was eating anymore. As long as it can provide him with a nutrition, he can devour anything, and this urge has become even more definite after the first injection, and he only noticed it now. This meat isn't as nutritious as the goblin, but it still sends steam of warmth in my body, and now I didn't feel the urge to sleep anymore. I can feel the warm flow of energy flowing through my whole body. Is this how the heart converts my body? Ace wondered with elation as he closed his eyes and felt that strange warmth spreading in his body. He could feel his fatigue was going away, and he was recovering at an extremely fast pace. He remained in that half-conscious and half-asleep state for 3 hours before that warmth completely faded away, and he was now full of energy. His eyes opened and glowed as he said, "Cursed immortality." The white floating book appeared in front of him, and with a thought, the cover flipped and the first page appeared. Cursed immortality, cursed immortal physique, 9 phases. Current phase. First phase. First phase. Body transformation. Stages of body transformation. 3. First stage. Cursed heart emergence, current stage. Second stage. Compete first stage. Third stage. Compete second stage. Inheritor. Jacob Steve. Current phase. First. Body transformation. First stage progress. 13%. Oh, extra 3% progress from 10 in one go? Jacob was astonished and flipped to the second page. First phase of body transformation. Cursed heart emergence, first stage. Cursed heart emergence. 3 levels. First level. Formation of immortal mark inside the modify heart, complete. Second level. Turn immortal mark into cursed mark. Completion. 5%. Description. Please insert different tier 1 or higher species heart essence directly into your heart until the cursed mark is completely forged. Note, a species heart essence can only be inserted once, not again. Third level. Complete second level. Completion of this stage affected in 100 years of youthful lifespan. Jacob's lips curled upward when he saw the first injection give him 4% in 1. And he wondered how much he'll get with the arrow-tail jaguar's heart essence. But his expression fell when he thought he can't extract the heart essence anymore because everything was in the hideout. Jacob asked with a hint of perplexion, "Immortica, tell me how much my body changed." As much as he didn't want to talk with this annoying book right now, he knew only Immortica know his condition the best. That was why he reluctantly asked the question. However, just like always, Immortica wrote erratically, "Hee. I much say I quite like the scenery. Hee." Dark lines formed on Jacob's forehead and snapped. "Can't you just answer the question without your shitty sarcasm?" Immortica wrote, "Hee. It isn't sarcasm, I'm enjoying the show. I wonder if those 2 big logs will find you or not. Ah, so much excitement. As for your question, don't worry. After consuming that big cat, your body is at 59% compatible with your current heart strength. You just require to continue to kill and consume high-level meat, and you'll be just fine." Chapter 44. A familiar sound. Jacob was pleased with Immortica's answer. He suddenly thought of something and asked with uncertainty, "Can you tell me more about those 2 giants and the third person with them? Consider it me asking about what tier they belong to." The writing change. If you ask me directly, I won't be able to answer, but since you put the question in the right way, I can naturally tell you about them. The big logs were from the giant race branch called Mountain Giant Race, and they're supposed to be the 9th tier, but just as that goblin, their bloodline has declined, and they're currently at 7th tier. They had physical bodies as strong as rocks. As for how strong, only a 5mm bullet can penetrate their skin, you can get the idea from this. As for the third one, you're going to like this one, I'm sure of it, that was another goblin. And pretty sure he was the one who found that shithole, ha ha ha. Jacob's face clouded the moment he read the word goblin, and gritted his teeth in frustration. He didn't know if he had some kind of ominous affinity with goblins or grudge, but these bastards keep making his life difficult. He even felt like destroying the entire race when he had power. Immortica continued playfully. That goblin was a bronze goblin, and a tier 4 one at that. If he was at tier 6, I'm afraid he would have heard your footsteps in that rain, and your escape will be impossible. A bronze goblin had a very high hearing, and their vision is very close to an infrared vision of a snake, but not as good as one. However, they had a very keen sense, and they are very good at scouting and finding people. Now you understand how you were found? Ha ha ha. Fuck, it was really that smoke. Jacob cussed with a perplexed expression, although his guess was right, but was still infuriated about how another goblin fucked him up, and this one seemed to be even more dangerous than Decker. Wait a moment, did you know I was already being watched but still didn't warn me? Jacob finally noticed this point and coldly questioned. I told you I can't save you even if you're about to die, and you're on your own. Furthermore, I'm not an alarm clock nor can babysit you all the time, so deal with your problems. Besides, don't forget, I can only answer your questions related to scripture. Jacob naturally didn't believe the last words and rebutted coldly. You just enjoy watching me suffer, don't you? And stop that bullshit about not speaking without my questions. We both know it's a white fucking lie. He, so what? A vein popped up on Jacob's forehead, and he couldn't help but be rated. Fucking bastard, if I died, I'll make sure to take you down with me. And close the annoying book. He sighed helplessly afterward. Even though this book is hateful and unreliable, I still need it to achieve immortality, and it's a fact that I'll just die without it. But every time it speaks I want to burn it. How infuriated. Well, at least now I know who's after me. Jacob peeked outside, and the rain has slowed down substantially. He mused it won't be long before it stopped, but the sky was still dark, so he waited until dawn before continuing his journey. Now he knew his enemy can see heat signatures, so he had to be careful and hide his tracks, or he won't know when those two giants will ambush him. Just like that, a week passed since Jacob had fled from his hideout and he didn't know where he was or where he was heading. But he was careful in his way and he was 90% sure he didn't leave any traces, and now if those giants or goblins find him they can't connect him with Decker's hideout, and he could simply play a helpless human lost in this vast mountain range. However, he still preferred not to confront them because they can easily kill him on a whim, and he won't be able to escape those giants' pursuit either. He wasn't worried about the goblin at all if he was alone. One thing worth mentioning was that he encountered some animals and even hunt 2 uncommon animals on his 5th and 7th days. But because he only had one last container to collect their heart and blood, he felt extremely regretful. Now he was only focusing on building his body, and with every hunt and meal, he grew stronger, and he still wasn't done. Jacob also noticed as he moved in this particular direction that the animals were becoming weaker and weaker, that he even encountered common species. He mused he might be close to the exit. As for Pighead, he had greatly wilted from his burly self and Jacob was completely helpless because he didn't know how to nurture him without those liquids. He simply didn't eat or drink normally even after he tried to feed him meat, even blood. But it just continued to wither with each passing day, and Jacob was afraid that Pighead might perish before he could find an exit. Although he still had one last bottle of black liquid, he was saving it for himself, all this time in an emergency. Pighead was completely disposable while his life wasn't, and if he felt into some trouble, he could run alone and faster now. Time continued to pass, and Jacob has been wandering in these mountain ranges for over 3 months now. On this particular day, boom! Jacob, who was sitting on a large tree branch, suddenly heard an extremely familiar sound that he would not forget, even if he had forgotten everything. He had heard this sound countless times and for the better half of his life. His amber eyes flickered in serendipity and there was also a hint of elation as he mumbled, "A gunshot." Chapter 45 Humans. Jacob looked entirely different from 3 months ago. His body was brawny as he wore a crude coat made from arrow-tail jaguar's hide and a pant made with another uncommon animal's hide. His face was covered with a thick layer of mud and a long messy beard, while his hair was crudely cut to his shoulder length. His eyes were filled with sharp, murderous intent. He gave the feeling of a vile barbarian who has gone through many cruel battles. It was in fact the case as well because after his first month of wandering, he stopped using Pighead to fight those animals and started to brawl with them himself. One reason for doing this was Pighead was wilting with each fight, and the other reason was to get accustomed to his rising strength. After hunting and consuming 9 uncommon and 25 common animals, his body has already become 100% compatible with his current heart. He didn't dare to believe he had such a strength, which was nothing but superhuman, and it was only the beginning. On the other hand, Pighead was now half of his former burly self. He even appeared slightly weaker than Jacob now, and if Jacob let him continue to fight, he might have already been withered completely. However, this matter was the least important at this moment because of that gunshot Jacob heard a few moments ago. Before he wasn't sure if this world has guns or not before, but after hearing this sound he was now sure of it. Furthermore, he was searching for the exit all this time, and this gunshot also mean there was someone who came here for either to hunt or they were also escapees like him. The chances of the latter scenario were minimum, but they were still there. Since they're using a gun, this means they're weak and from the muzzle blast. It's probably shot from a rifle with a 66 centimeters in barrel and 15-round magazine, or a carbine with a 51 centimeters in the barrel and 12-round magazine, give or takes. Ho ho, I never thought their technology is only at a Colt Lightning carbine level, or this person simply can't afford another one. Well, I'll find out soon. Jacob's heart raced just thinking about guns, which were his bread and butter in his past life, and he dominated the entire world's advanced weaponry industry with them. Although he worked with modern firearms, their foundation was built on their predecessors, and he even had the biggest collection of antique guns. All in all, he knows these weapons by heart, and just by the sound he could tell which kind of gun was bullet has been shot, just like now. This was the true face of Jacob Steve, who devoted his life to sharpening the art of murdering. With quiet steps, he quickly reached the area where the gunshot sound came, and he heard some voices, which make his heart fill with excitement. Great shot, Sir Gus. That wild tusk boar died instantly. A female voice exclaimed in praise. Another male voice rang with a hint of pride. Lady Kiana, it was nothing. I once hunted a three-horn lizard. Jacob slowly crept toward the trees, when he finally saw the owners of these voices. He was astonished when he saw 4 horse riders wearing English hunter outfits. 2 were young girls with beautiful features, while 2 were young men, tall and handsome. One of the young men with blonde hair was holding a black rifle which looked exactly like Colt Lightning carbine in his hand, just as Jacob guessed, and the other 3 were also armed with the same rifles. Humans. It seemed I wandered into the uncommon region. According to Decca's journal, humans lived in uncommon regions, and this place is the weakest of the 4 known regions. Well, this is also good since it would be difficult if I accidentally enter the rare region. I first have to get the knowledge of this world and then move toward the upper regions, and mingling with my kind is the easiest way. But those 4 looked like scions of some rich family. If I appeared before them, they might turn hostile from the way I look right now. Then I can just follow them back, and I'll eventually reach human territory. Jacob quickly decided to remain hidden and follow these 4 around until they led him to some human city. Well, he was also interested in their conversation and those Colt Lightning rifle. Sir Arian, where should we go next? Gus looked at the black-haired young man on a brown horse. Arian thought for a moment before he said, We're currently on the peripheries of the rainy mountain ranges, and if you want to hunt uncommon animals we have to ride for 5 days or even longer if we're unlucky. But we can't be out for this long, right? So let's go toward the Dark Wolf Ridge, which is the closet, and hunt the dark wolves. Only common animals, and some can evolve into uncommon. They're vicious and hunt in a pack. They can even hunt uncommon animals in numbers. We can easily retreat if we encounter any danger. What do you think? The 2 girls looked at Gus with anticipation. He was clearly the leader of this small party. Gus nodded without even thinking and pridefully said, Then Dark Wolf Ridge it is them. I just happen to need some wolf fur hair. The 2 girls giggled hearing Gus joke with admiration in their eyes while Arian smiled wryly at his employer. With Arian guidance, they galloped the horses and ride toward the direction of Dark Wolf Ridge. Jacob, who watched and listening all this, couldn't help but click his tongue. So that place was called Dark Wolf Ridge and those dogs were sneaky. They even managed to almost phase my coat. I'm afraid those 4 scions will be dead before they could lead me to human settlement. What to do now? Chapter 46 Dark Wolf Ridge. The 4 horse riders carefully moved toward the Dark Wolf Ridge, which was a few miles away from the point they stopped before. But they were completely oblivious to the fact that someone was following them despite their horses, and this person was on foot. Furthermore, this person was doing this with extreme agility and without breaking any sweat at that. After half an hour of journey, they finally reached the footstep of a mountain valley. The blonde-hair youth named Gus questioned the black-hair Aryan. "Is this the entrance of the Dark Wolf Ridge?" The two beautiful girls were also admiring the beautiful view, completely oblivious to how dangerous this place was. Aryan nodded and replied solemnly, "Yes, Sir Gus, if another wanted to enter the deeper parts of the Rainy Mountains, one way is to cross this Dark Wolf Ridge. We should only hunt within 10 kilometers, or we might attract large wolf packs, and we have to leave before dark. Those dark wolves are extremely active in the dark, and will be in trouble if they ambush us." Gus said, "Then why are we waiting for? We only have 3 hours before it got dark. What do you think, ladies?" Kiana, the young petite and vivacious lady with a round face and smooth white skin, replied with a hint of excitement, "Yes, we'll need to hurry. I don't want to miss the chance to experience hunting, right, Jennifer?" Jennifer, who had a captivating oval face with pale white skin and bright long blonde hair, wanted to say something but, in the end, was hesitant while looking at her best friend's expected expression and her brother, Gus' confident smile. She took a deep breath and nodded with a smile that was somewhat forceful. "All right, but we have to leave before it gets dark." "Hee, just trust your big brother in this," Gus confidently declared and signaled Aryan to lead the way. They all slowly move while holding their rifles in the active position, so they could react at any given moment of danger. But to their misfortune, they didn't encounter any wolf or any kind of animal, even after entering 5 miles deep in the Dark Wolf Ridge. Aryan couldn't help but knit his eyebrows. "We didn't encounter a single wolf all this time. What's going on?" Gus coolly said, "Don't worry, maybe we need to go deeper before those dogs show themselves. With these latest cannons, we didn't need to worry about some lowly dogs at all." Aryan didn't retort, nor did he reply. He was feeling uneasy because he wasn't like these 3 aristocrats who hunt once in a while for fun, but he was a professional hunter who make living with hunting. The Rainy Mountain ranges were extremely vast and dangerous, so he seldom came here, especially after becoming someone's guide. If Gus hasn't offered him this latest cannon, he wasn't willing to enter the Rainy Mountain range with these 3 house flowers. Nevertheless, he knew he can't leave them here because of their backgrounds unless he wanted to live his life in these mountains, which was akin to not living at all. That was why he had to do his duty of guide and kept them safe while letting them hunt some animals in the outer parts of the Rainy Mountains, and this Dark Wolf Ridge was quite safe as long as they didn't enter too deep within, and these 3 will also get their kick out of hunting the wolves. But now that no wolf was pouncing on them even after entering this deep in the Dark Wolf Ridge, he started to feel uneasy. Just like that, had entered over 10 miles deep into the Dark Wolf Ridge, and if they continue to move, they'll enter the breeding place of the Dark Wolves, which will spell their death at any day. Aryan signaled them to stop before he said, with a grim look in his eyes, "Sir Gus, we should leave. There's something wrong with this place." Gus looked at Aryan with an unkind gaze and sternly said, "Sir Aryan, I don't see any wolf in here, but you keep being overly dramatic. I think I'll have to talk with your agency leader after I got back." Aryan frowned, but he didn't back down. "You can complain all you want, but I don't think the leader will punish me, because I think there's a rare wolf king in the Dark Wolf Ridge now. That's why all the wandering wolves have retreated to the core of this ridge, and only a wolf king can make this happen. Trust me, you'll thank me later, but we have to leave before the thousands of wolves will be upon us. Or we don't even have a chance." Gus was startled, hearing Wolf King. It was a rare species that can control its kind as long as there wasn't another Wolf King in the pack. Furthermore, the birth of the Wolf King was a very grave matter for the people who lived close to this area of Rainy Mountain ranges. A Wolf King can easily cause a wolf stampede, which will not be good news for humans at all. Jennifer also spoke with an imploring tone. "Brother, listen to him. We'll go to some other place." Kiana also seemed terrified and looked at Gus. Gus clenched his teeth and finally agreed. "Fine, let's go then." Aryan have massive sighed with relief. and he quickly turned around his horse and led them toward the exit of this ridge. However, the dusk was already starting, and when there were only 3 miles between the exit and them, they heard a ghastly cry from afar which made them shiver. "A wolf!" Arian couldn't help but shout. "That's definitely a wolf king's cry. We have to leave quickly." It was a clear signal for the hunt. "We've been discovered." In shades of trees, Jacob, who has been following and listening to this group all day long, couldn't help but wonder with gleaming eyes. A rare species? I have never encountered it during my entire travel. If I can collect its blood and heart. At this moment, Jacob looked at the galloping group of horses with extremely cold eyes like they were high-quality baits. Chapter 47 Fishing. Jacob followed the galloping group with steady yet silent footsteps while calmly observing the situation at the back. That little girl, Kiana, is wearing an aromatic scent. Even I can smell it from here, not to talk about those annoying dogs. They're going to get killed no matter how much they run because of their own stupidity. Since that's the case, they better be baits for me and let me see if I can sneak attack the Wolf King. As long as I killed that beast, the leadership will crumble, and I can easily get the heart and blood. The animals above uncommon rank was known as beasts, and they were far more powerful than any uncommon animals. Those rare species with high intelligence and low physical strength can't hold a candle to those beasts if they don't have the means to deal with them. Jacob hasn't encountered any beast from all the way here, and it was only natural because he was heading in the direction of the uncommon region. Luckily, or else he might have been chased around by the beasts in the rare region if he had taken the opposite route. Nevertheless, he didn't want to miss the chance to acquire a rare species' heart and blood. As for going to a human settlement, he had already spotted a map in Arian's possessions, so he cared less about those strangers' lives anymore, since they were more important as his baits than guides. Besides, just as he said, even if he wasn't here, those 4 reckless fools were destined to die, but now they'll die because of a cause. Just as Jacob's prediction, thereupon, multiple footsteps sounded within the valley, and those 4 also noticed this and started to panic. Gus couldn't help but shouted in horror. "What is happening? How can they track us so quickly?" Arian has also had a pale expression, clearly appalled by this same question. He suddenly thought of something and proclaimed, "It's the smell. Dark wolves have a terrifying sense of smell. We should have prepared for this. Damn it, it's too late now." They were riding as fast as they could, but the trees were making it difficult for horses to gain distance, and those wolves were catching up. Kiana's expression was ashen as she shouted in frenzy, "Do something, I don't want to die." Arian retorted grimly, "There's nothing you can do now. Those wolves behind us are just the vanguard. As long as they surround us, more will come. We can only run for our lives." Gus felt great despair at this moment when he saw dark wolves, the size of an adult lion, chasing while viciously looking at them with their beastly eyes. He suddenly thought of something. His eyes landed on Arian, who was also looking back, and a ruthless glint flashed past his eyes. He pointed his rifle at Arian's horse's head and pulled the trigger. Boom! Arian didn't even know what happened, and after this explosive sound, his horse suddenly somersaulted, and he was sent flying into a tree. He slammed right face first, and his face banged open like a watermelon as blood gushed out. Jennifer couldn't believe what Gus had just done and looked at him with frightened eyes as she looked back and saw those wolves pouncing on the dismembered horse and still hanging by a threat, Arian. Gus exclaimed coldly before Kiana or Jennifer could utter a single word. "If I haven't done this, we all would be torn into pieces by those animals right now. It was either us or him, so just focus on running." They couldn't retort to his statement because now those wolves weren't chasing them like before, and they could only keep their head low. Jacob, who was moving in the shades of trees, naturally observed everything and pulled an amusing yet cold smile. Hee, backstab when needed, just like me in the old days. Let's see who will be sacrificed next. I want to see if he could kill his kin for survival. I'll collect that rifle and other stuff later since those dogs won't eat them. Probably. Although he wanted that map, he didn't want to put a target on his head right now, so he gave up and decided to look for it after this was all over. If there was something left of it. "Oh, whoa." The same powerful howl rang again, and those wolves trembled slightly before they stopped eating the corpses and again chased the reaming three. Jacob's eyes shimmered when he saw those wolves leaving and looked at the bag laying in a bloody pool of dead horse and the rifle not far away from Arian's mutilated corpse. If I want to sneak attack the Wolf King, my already jagged knife won't be enough anymore. Jacob looked left and right before quickly leaping toward the leather bag and rifle at full speed. He successfully grabbed the bag before he picked up the rifle and retreated hastily before any wolf could notice him. His speed was 90 kilometers per hour after his body fully became compatible with his heart, and not only that, he can achieve this speed within a second. That was what made this snatching occasion so easy just now, or he might have got noticed by those vicious animals by now. Jacob threw the back into the infinity pendant without checking the interior and examined the Colt Lightning rifle with searing eyes. He couldn't help but creased its smooth magazine gate. Although this is the crude imitation of Colt Lighting, it still has its power, but its muzzle is of inferior quality and the trigger pins seem to be of silver. I wonder which idiot made it. This will blow up in 50 or 55 shots, and from the look of it still new and fully loaded, so I should be able to use it for some time. Jacob thought the rifle's flaws at a glance, but he was satisfied as long as it can shoot some bullets in succession since he didn't have the time to modify it right now. Chapter 48 Killing Dark Wolf King. Jacob continued to follow the galloping horses and the dark wolves. He was waiting for the Wolf King to show itself and then a chance to ambush it. He didn't care about those 3 lives anymore since they bought it upon themselves. Furthermore, he already got what he wanted, and he didn't want someone like Gus traveling with him at all, even though he was the same. Scatter quickly or we won't survive. Gus's expressions were ashen when he saw those wolves didn't give up on them, and the Wolf King was controlling the wolf pack to hunt them. He knew killing another won't work this time, so he chose another option, which was to escape alone by using the other 2, even his sister. Kiana madly shouted hysterically at this moment. "No, I don't want to die, and I don't know the way. I'll die if I go alone." Jennifer, on the other hand, didn't lose control of her emotions and quickly agreed with Gus's suggestion with a subtle look in her eyes. "Fine, let Kiana go with you. I'll go on the other side. This way wolves will be divided." Gus didn't have time to think about anything else and shouted, "Go!" Jennifer didn't delay either, and she meticulously controlled the horse's reins and turned in the other direction. The pack of dark wolves also separated into 2 groups and chased after both of them. Jacob's eyes shone with a cold light, watching this sudden turn of events. That woman seemed to guess why they're being tracked so easily. Ha! Jacob completely ignored Jennifer and continued to follow Gus and Kiana because most wolves were after them. Gus also noticed the wolves seemed to double them before, and his expression turned extremely grim. He looked at crying Kiana with killing intent. However, before he could use her like Arian, he heard powerful footsteps in front, and thereafter, he saw a 4-meter silhouette lunging toward him from the front with a huge maw filled with sharp teeth. Before he could react, the maw completely engulfed his face, and it closed instantly, and he didn't get the chance to utter a single word before his head was severed from his torso. The enormous silhouette also tackled the horse and sent it flying with Gus's headless body, and Kiana lose her consciousness seeing this horrible scene and fell between the bloodthirsty wolf pack. The enormous silhouette was a 4-meter dark wolf, but it also has silver fur on its neck. It was the newly evolved Dark Wolf King. The Dark Wolf King spat Gus's marred head and looked up in the sky and let loose a powerfully imposing roar. "Oh, whoa!" The other dark wolves trembled before they lower their heads in fear like dogs. However, Dark Wolf King seemed to sense something as it stopped roaring and turned its head toward a tree, and it instantly noticed a humanoid silhouette. Boom, boom, boom. But before it could react, 3 consecutive gunshots rang in the vicinity, catching the Wolf King off guard, nor did it have any time to dodge the insanely fast bullets. They directly landed on its skull, and one of them was between its eyes. The Wolf King didn't have the chance to react before it was shot down by Jacob. Those other wolves didn't know what happened, but when the Wolf King's massive body fell to the ground, they all roared in panic and ran in all directions in perturbation. Well, this goes quite well. I should quickly collect its heart and blood before those dogs came back to their senses. Jacob quickly jumped off the tree. A metallic container appeared in his hand and he quickly emptied it. There were blood and the heart of another uncommon animal. Since he had already hunted a rare beast, he naturally didn't need an uncommon animal's heart and blood. He quickly sprang into action and acquired the Wolf King's big heart, which was 1 foot in size, and filled the container with its blood before storing it away. It's just a pity I can't eat it. Jacob felt great regret for leaving this rare quality meat for those wolves, but he knew he can't carry this large carcass, or he'll be hunted down by those wolves as well soon. His eyes suddenly landed on Kiana. She was still alive and only bleeding from the wound on her head, and then looked at those bags and rifles carried by Gus and her. He nonchalantly picked up everything. The leather bags and rifles were now hanging around his neck. He said to the unconscious Kiana, "You should never wear perfume while hunting. I hope you can survive to remember this." With that, he left toward the Dark Wolf Ridge exit. He was going toward where he left Pighead to wait for him since that guy has become his burden. But he still was unwilling to let him go because he could tell as long as he found those liquids, Pighead could be revived back to its peak. Because Pighead was still stronger than Jacob in its prime, and this was the reason Jacob didn't want to dispose of him this soon. But Jacob also knew it was a long shot if he wanted to find those liquids. After observing Gus's group and the crude rifles in their possession, he was doubtful that humans could produce such liquids. In the end, he was awakened in the presence of a rare species, and that guy was nothing but ordinary, so he had little hope after coming to the uncommon region. Nevertheless, this place was still perfect for him to hide until he completed the second stage of Cursed Heart emergence and absorbed the information from human society. It won't be too late to move toward the rare region at that time. After finding Pighead, Jacob found a place to rest and also to see what was in those 3 bags that he got from this small encounter. Chapter 49 Rain Town. Jacob opened the first bag, which was the cleanest of the 3 leather bags he got, and it was from Kiana, who wasn't dead and intact when he took it. However, when he saw the content, he frowned. There were 2 sets of women's clothes, makeup, and even a bottle of scent. Other than that, he found 15 Colt bullets and a small pouch with 10 silver coins and 48 bronze coins. These coins were the same as he got from Decker. "She deserved what happened to her," Jacob mumbled, annoyingly. He stored away the bullets and coins and threw everything else aside. Then he opened Gus's bag, which holds a pair of new hunter cloths, a machete knife, 35 Colt bullets, and a money pouch that holds 64 silver coins and 12 bronze coins. There was a silver insignia. Lastly, he opened Arian's bag, and this guy was carrying 2 machete knives, a leather map, 42 Colt bullets, another money bag with 23 silver and 75 bronze, and the last thing which made Jacob delighted, a revolver with 12 extra bullets for it. Jacob quickly examines the revolver. It's another crude imitation of Enfield revolver, but its length is 13 centimeters in and cartridge .576, which also increased its caliber to .576 as well, and effective firing range has increased up to 35 yards. All these firearms were used between the 19th and 20th centuries in my world, and they're not at their peak yet. Could it be this world technology is only at this level? But how is this possible? Well, I have to see for myself. Jacob stored away the revolver and other small things, except for the map. The map wasn't as detailed as he was hoping for, but it was marked by Arion neatly, which Jacob appreciated. If I keep moving north, I'll reach Gloria country border, and these people were also from there, and this map only denoted a small part of the Rainy Mountain Range in Gloria country. Well, it's enough for me. Jacob smiled in satisfaction before he stored the map away as well. Now his eyes landed on the 3 rifles as they shone with ingenuity. I hope I didn't lose my touch. With that, Jacob started to dismantle the 3 rifles and modified them with his peak skills. The Gloria country was a small part of the human kingdom, and it was under the jurisdiction of a baron. There were 4 big cities in Gloria's country and many small towns. The closest town to the Rainy Mountain Ranges was a mid-sized town named Rain Town, and many hunters who make their living with hunting or others who enjoy hunting as a hobby first come here for supplies. That was why this town was always lively and filled with armed people all year long. However, this was also the reason for this town's high crime rate, and no one wanted to offend anyone without no good reason. Because here just a normal-looking person can be from a noble household, and in Gloria country, if you offend a noble you won't meet a good ending. Nevertheless, all this has nothing to do with this newly arrived handsome man, with long silver hair. He was wearing a hunter outfit while a revolver hung on his belt. He was none other than Jacob, who has cleaned himself up and wore the hunter outfit he found in Gus's bag. After scrutinizing the small town for an hour, he noticed many were wearing the same outfits and carrying firearms openly, without any restrictions. So he does the same, but he only showed his revolver because he didn't see anyone carrying a rifle, and he mused those guys were from some rich family, and it would be troublesome if someone suspected anything. Now he looked just like the others, besides his unusual hair color, but no one seemed to be interested in him as he passed the unguarded town gates. They're quite lax. Jacob smiled as he curiously observed the town, which looked like the town from the middle 18th, and his guess about humans being so inferior in technology became even more substantial. But this also means he can't get what he wanted here, not the liquid or any equipment in Decca's lab. He suddenly felt that shithole might be the biggest boon he received from Decca, but it was gone in smoke because of his own mistake. However, he didn't have the time to reminisce about his past mistakes. He found a middle-aged man who wasn't wearing a hunter outfit and was normally dressed. He politely asked, "Sir, can you please tell me where I can find a bookstore or healing medicine?" Jacob didn't find any kind of medicine in Gus and others' bags, so he was quite curious about this, and he also wanted to find the liquids as soon as possible for Pig Head, who he hid in the forest far away from the town. The man was startled when he heard Jacob calling him and asking such a question. He became scared for some reason and replied with a trembling voice, Please forgive me, sir, I am just an ordinary mason, and we don't have such a luxury to afford any medicine." "So, I see can't help you." Jacob frowned slightly, and he could tell from this man's facial expression that he was extremely afraid of him and also telling the truth. His heartbeat also increased rapidly when he saw Jacob's frown. "Thank you." Jacob let the man go. He was afraid this guy might start to cry if he held him longer, and he didn't want to cause a commotion. Strange, he knew about the medicine, but he can't afford it? It seemed I still have to investigate more, and I should talk with a hunter since these natives seem to be afraid of hunters. I won't get anything out of them. Jacob moved on, and this time his eye landed on an old building, which was a pub, and suddenly remembered drinks. With a hint of anticipation, he entered the pub in large strides. Chapter 50 The Pub. Jacob entered the pub and a strong, intoxicating alcoholic smell filled his nostrils. His lips curled. Finally, a familiar smell. Jacob looked at the pub interior, and it was like the old pubs in the 1800s. There was a huge counter covering a corner with stools around it and round tables and chairs. He felt he has entered some kind of old movie set. Many burly men were drinking and chatting happily, while some of them were flirting with waitresses in revealing gowns. Some customers noticed Jacob's eye-catching appearance, and he had this cold aura around him which made him look like a cold killer. Jacob didn't mind those stares, he was already used to them in his past life, and nonchalantly walked over to the counter and sat on an empty stool. He curiously looked at the pub's alcohol display and felt reminisced. The bartender, who was a tall, muscular man, with a short goatee and bronze skin, approached Jacob with a smile and asked, "You're new here, friend? What can I make for you?" Jacob easily seen through those exploiting eyes and coolly said, "Yeah, just landed here today, give me something strong." "Just a sec." The bartender smiled and made Jacob drink. Another man with a slightly chubby figure sitting on Jacob's left was sneakily glancing at him, especially his revolver. He said with a smile showing his green teeth, "You sure know your guns, brother. It's the D4 revolver, extremely slick." Jacob looked at him and merely said while glancing at the silver revolver on the man's gun belt, "You're not bad yourself, that long-barrel revolvers are far more powerful than mine. Hee, this old thing isn't as fast as yours. I'll be dead if an agile animal attacked me." He scoffed as he gulped his beer. Well, you seemed pretty alive to me, Jacob commented with a smirk. Here's your Hell's Tour, a specialty of our Rain Town. The bartender put a square glass half filled with bubbly blue translucent liquid. Jacob didn't stand on ceremony and took a sip, and his eyes widened slightly. Now this is what I survive for. He drank the whole thing in one gulp and smashed the glass on the counter and said, "Good, another one." The bartender's eyes brightened and he chuckled. "Right away. Man, you can really drink, huh?" The man beside him clicked his tongue. "Nothing to brag about. My name is Jack. Tell me, are you a native of Rain Town?" Jacob asked as he picked up the newly refilled glass. "Miller." Miller introduced. "No, I'm from Lionheart City and only here to hunt some petitioned animals." "What about you?" "Gloria City, and for the same reason. But I'm looking for some medicine for my journey. Do you know where I can look for them?" Jacob asked in a roundabout way this time. However, to this surprise, both bartender and Miller suddenly looked at him with disbelief as if they heard something ridiculous. Miller sneered. "You're not from Gloria City, are you? What's wrong with them?" Jacob thought. Jacob's expression didn't change at all and merely said, "Does it matter?" "Humph, another bumpkin who wanted to be mysterious." Miller snorted with a hint of disdain. Jacob's expression fell slightly as he put his hand in his pocket and took out a silver coin and put it on the counter and looked at the bartender. "Answer my questions and it's yours." The bartender was startled for a moment, but his eyes shone with greed as he looked at the silver coin. It was equivalent to his month's salary. "What do you want to know?" he asked while his eyes fixed on the silver coin. Miller's expression was also somewhat ugly now when he saw Jacob completely ignore him and slap his face with that silver. "Medicine, where can I find them?" Jacob sternly asked while his finger remained on the silver coin. The bartender truthfully said, "I don't know where you're from, but in Gloria Contrary, you can only buy medicine from apothecary guilds, and they're extremely expensive." "Where can I find these apothecary guilds?" Jacob questioned with a hint of realization. "Only in the 4 major cities. Those apothecaries disdained small towns like us and didn't bother to open any branches, nor did they let any merchants sell them. Furthermore, it's a crime to sell medicine without the apothecary guild's permission, and only in the black market you can find them, and that's if you're extremely lucky." The bartender sighed helplessly. Miller disdainfully commented at this moment, "You have no idea about the status of the apothecary guild. Its roots are spread all over the 4 regions, and they didn't give even the humane king face. That's why no one dared to cross them and eye the massive medicine business. A monopoly on medicine? It's like controlling the life of the masses. These guys are playing in gold. I need more information." Jacob felt extremely ignorant. "Last question, where can I buy books?" Jacob didn't even glance at Miller and only looked at the bartender. "There's an old book store 2 stresses away. You can buy common books there." The bartender replied. Jacob finished his drink and put away his finger from the silver coin. He stood up and was about to leave when the bartender's unhappy voice sounded, "You didn't pay for drinks." Jacob didn't turn around, and only his stony voice sounded, "A silver is enough for the drinks, and you can keep the change. If you're not satisfied, follow me." With that, Jacob walked without even looking around. Miller felt Jacob was too imperious, and he moved his hand toward the revolver's handle. The bartender also didn't stop Miller, as his eyes were filled with ridicule at Jacob's blind confidence. It was the lawless Rain Town. How daring of him to show his back. Bang! A gunshot sounded, drawing everyone's attention in the pub before a body fell on the group. Surprisingly, it was Miller with a bullet hole in his forehead and his brains scattered on the floor while his hand was still on the gun handle. Jacob finally turned around and looked at the gobsmacked bartender with the revolver in his hand. "You can collect the payment from my bumpkin friend there and keep the change, again." Chapter 51 Common Knowledge. Jacob exited the pub with an impassive expression. "I just kill a human for the first time and didn't feel a thing? Is it because of the book, Or it's just my true nature thriving after I stop resisting it. Jacob thought a little about it and headed toward the bookstore. He won't provoke anyone and kill wantonly as long as the other party won't show any kind of hostility or killing intent. Furthermore, this town was completely lawless. That was why Jacob directly go for the kill, because he could easily discriminate Miller was eyeing his possessions from the start. That was the reason he first started a conversation to probe about his backing, and seeing him ignorant about the common customs, he directly labeled him as a target and provoke him. But since Jacob didn't react in any manner or start a fight, he wanted to kill Jacob when he got the chance and reason, but he would have never thought Jacob's danger sense was not something a chubby like Miller could have. Even if his back was facing someone, Jacob's ears were like radar, and he could easily discriminate sounds like heartbeats and so on. That was what spelled Miller's doom. This will also warn the others who were looking at him like he was a fat pig. It was just like that saying, "Kill the chicken to scare the monkey." Now, no one would dare to label him as an easy target. After a while, he finally found an old run-down shop that looked like it wasn't maintained for decades. When he opened the door, a small bell chimed, and he entered the shop. He saw an old grandma napping in her chair. Even the bell didn't wake her up. Jacob's lips curled upward, and he didn't disturb the old lady and started to skim through old books on the old shelves. Uncommon Species Region History. He was drawn by this thin book's title and took it out, reading it. The more he read, the more his expression sank. First, he found out that the uncommon region wasn't just dominated by humans, and there were two more intelligent, uncommon races with their kingdoms, like humans. These three kingdoms rule the uncommon region together, and the human kingdom was established last and was the weakest of them as well. The human kingdom, name Humane Kingdom, was established over 500 years ago by an ambitious human, Philip Grover, who unite the humans who lived in tribes before, and they were always hunted down by the other two kingdoms like livestock. The other two kingdoms were the Oriate Kingdom established by the Green Goblin race, and the Earthen Kingdom established by Hob Trolls. Both races had excellent relationships with each other, but not with humans because they were supposed to be their food. How could they accept them as an equal? Furthermore, the goblins were famous for their engineering technology, and all the guns and other firearms blueprints were plundered from them. While the Hob Trolls were known for their craftsmanship, they also help quite a lot in human development to this stage. However, to grow, humans have to fight endlessly with these two races and evolved. But those two races have very strong foundations, and it wasn't enough for current humans to shake them. That was why to not cause huge wars with them and stop them from teaming up. The Humane Kingdom will pay annual tributes to those two kingdoms. Although Jacob's expressions remain impassive, his eyes were deadly cold when he read humans pay tributes to others and live like dogs, especially when he saw goblins were involved as well. His grudge against the goblin race was quite deep, so he was naturally unhappy about this. But he also noticed that this tribute rule was established after the first king, Philip's death, or as long as he was alive. Humans never lower their heads and even pushed two races back. This has happened when some spineless bastard took the leadership, and now they need to pay some monsters to not attack? I'm mortified. Jacob was from a world where humans were at the top and there was nothing they can't conquer, but here he felt these world's humans were even qualified to call themselves humans. In the end, he simply put the book back. He wasn't here to liberate humanity, nor he was interested in the power struggle. He already had his fun in his previous life. Furthermore, he was going to use anyone to reach his own goal, immortality. Afterward, he browsed through more books and broadened his horizons. He also found the distribution of currency in his world. The lowest currency was bronze coins. Then a silver coin, which was equivalent to 100 bronze coins. Then there were gold coins. 1 gold coin was equivalent to 100 silver coins. All this currency was managed by the Zodiac Taurus Bank, which was like the apothecary guild, everywhere. Its origin was also unknown, while no one dared to mess with them and all the currency was controlled by them. Another hegemony, and they monopolized the money. Moreover, only nobles were eligible to open a bank account in this bank, and they won't accept commoners. He also found some more information about the Apothecary Guild. They not only controlled the medicines but also apothecaries in the kingdoms, and without their license, if an apothecary tended to someone or sell his medicine, they will be imprisoned by the guild. Jacob suddenly felt this world was ruled by powerful people, not on the base of equality like his previous one. He also noticed the Taurus word with zodiac and couldn't help but thought of the 12 zodiac signs. But regretfully, there wasn't any knowledge about continents or zodiac planes here. There was the same as Decca's journal. They only know the name zodiac planes and the 5 regions that were it. Jacob spends the entire afternoon in this shop while the old lady was still sound asleep, and familiarized himself with the common knowledge of the humane kingdom. After he was done, he left a silver on the counter and left the shop. His next destination was a smithery. Chapter 52: Jacob's Plan. Jacob didn't have to wander around for long before he came in front of a small store with ephemeral, which was quite unusual in this town. There was a small name board on the wooden door, Isaac Smithery. Jacob entered the smithery and felt the high temperature inside, unfazed by it. His eyes landed on the weapon display, where all kinds of cold weapons were shown. "Welcome to my humble establishment, dear customer." A polite, firm voice sounded from the side. Jacob looked over and saw a burly man with a long beard. He was Isaac, the blacksmith, and owner of this smithery. Jacob nodded in greeting and directly stated his request. "I want to make something. I wonder if you're up to the task." Isaac smiled confidently and said, "As long as you have a design, I can forge anything." "Is that so? Give me something to draw." Jacob curled his lip. Isaac was startled by Jacob's request. He carefully looked at Jacob. "Are you serious? What, you think I'm messing with you?" Jacob smirked. "Well, you don't seem like such a person. Here, you can draw on this." Isaac was an honest man, so he thought a little of it and handed Jacob a notepad and pencil. Jacob didn't delay and started to draw the distillation equipment. Since he can't find the equipment, he might make them, and they weren't difficult to make as well. Isaac was also astonished when he saw Jacob's elegant drawing and couldn't help but praise him inwardly. "Here." Jacob handed the design to Isaac. "How long will it take to make them?" Isaac solemnly looked at the design and said, 3 days. Jacob nodded in agreement. "You want payment now or when I recover the goods?" "You need to pay half right now and the other half the day of delivery." Isaac stated, "It'll be 5 silver coins and 5 on the day of delivery." "Here." Jacob didn't care about money as long as he was spending it on himself. "If I like your work, I might order even more." After saying that, Jacob left the smithery. "Although I can make far better firearms myself, I need gunpowder for bullets, and bullets only sell in the mercenary agency. But I have to acquire an identity first, and I still didn't know if I'm a native of the humane kingdom. It will be troublesome. I still didn't know who this body belonged to and why this guy was sold as a slave to that bastard. I didn't have memories of his life, but I somehow understand and read the language of this world, which means he wasn't some lowlife and probably schemed against. Now that I think about it, the humane kingdom didn't have slave trading since they didn't have the right to make other races their slaves, and it was probably them who was captured by slave traders to become slaves. This means this body was probably captured and then somehow entered the rare region or somewhere close to it. Decca was being chased at that time, and he won't dare to show his face in the rare region. Just who was he? Jacob was always curious about the real identity of this body. It wasn't because he wanted to seek revenge or care about him, but was afraid of trouble. It was already clear that someone wanted to get rid of this body's previous owner, and they even wanted him to suffer before he died, and it happened as well. But who would have thought Jacob would be reborn in this body after the person died by Decca's experiment? Nevertheless, Jacob was careful, and he was planning to remain in the rain town for the time being. Because the rainy mountain ranges were close to it, he could easily hunt and then absorb the heart's essence. It won't be too late to move to the cities when he needed, but there were still many things for him to understand about this place. I should register with the Star Mercenary Agency, which is also sponsored by the Zodiac Taurus Bank. It's the only place that sells and buys animals and beasts, while they also sell firearms and the things I require. They had branches all over the humane kingdom as well. According to the book, anyone can be registered with them as long as they had skills. After making up his mind, Jacob started to find a place to stay. Thereupon, with 1 silver coin, he rented an old house for 7 months, where he could easily extract the heart essence and live. But more importantly, this house was on the edge of Rain Town, and he could easily sneak in Pig Head for the time being. He never thought of getting rid of him unless he died himself. Pig Head became even more important after he understood the uncommon region's structure and human strength. As long as he could find those liquids in the Apothecary Guild, there was still hope for Pig Head. At night, Jacob sneaked out of the Rain Town since the security was as shitty as it could get and sneaked in Pig Head into the old house basement and felt relief. While Jacob was settling in the Rain Town, inside the Lord's mansion of the Rain Town, a middle-aged man with a noble bearing had a hideous face right now as he looked at the city guard. "Are you sure Lord Gus's group hasn't come back yet?" he sternly asked with a flustered look on his face. The guard nodded. "Yes, my lord, just as you instructed. I was paying attention to Lord Gus's group returned, but they weren't back yet." "Do you know what this means? If they went missing or anything happened to Lord Gus or his sister, our entire town will be executed." The town lord roared as he trembled in anger. The guard didn't dare to raise his head anymore. He knew what will happen if the children of a barren household went missing from Rain Town. At this moment, another guard entered, and he was panting for breath as he said, Miss, Jennifer has returned with injuries, but she's alone." Chapter 53 Star Mercenary Agency 1. The next morning, Jacob felt refreshed after sleeping in an actual room, without being careful about any animal attacks or running rainwater from the roof. After dressing in casual clothes of the natives, which he bought from the Rain Town the other day, "I should get the identity of a star mercenary first today. That place should be close to the town lord's mansion." Jacob locked the door and headed toward the most prominent area of Rain Town. The Star Mercenary Agency was established and sponsored by the Zodiac Taurus Bank when the Humane Kingdom was founded. This agency was not only exclusive to the Humane Kingdom but, just like the bank, its roots were widely spread. The Star Mercenary Agency was quite lax with the members and its purpose was quite simple. They would accept missions from anyone for commission, and as long as you have sufficient mercenary rank, you can take the mission and earn corresponding rewards. Furthermore, besides the mission, they also deal with the animals and beasts as well as anything that can interest them. They have an ample amount of resources to buy anything. That was what made the Star Mercenary Agency so compelling to common folks. But this job was also very dangerous, and few survived the life of a mercenary. The Rain Town Plaza was the most bustling place in the entire town. It was not because of the Lord's mansion, but because the building of Star Mercenary Agency was located here, and it was even more lavish than the Lord's mansion. Many mercenaries were going in and out. Some held large bags dripping with blood, while some were going in to accept the mission. At this moment, a silver hair man appeared outside the building, drawing some attention, but not much. Everyone was minding their own business because in the Star Mercenary Agency there wasn't any rule about any infight, and if you provoke someone with a deep background, you might die on your next mission mysteriously. Especially a place like the Rain Town, which was closest to the Rainy Mountain Ranges, and many adventurous souls come here and some of them vanished without any traces. It was a very common case, so no one dared to provoke anyone, not without knowing their background first. Jacob entered the lavish building and saw a spacious hall with some tables and chairs. Many mercenary teams were discussing their mission while some were waiting. Now, this place has the vibes of a fantasy place. Jacob curled his lips slightly. His eyes scanned the place when they landed on a huge blackboard with many posters and there was a huge crowd swarming around it. Then he noticed a large counter in the west, and 5 beautiful receptionists were dealing with queues of mercenaries. He directly headed their way. He noticed the bronze signs in front of those 5 receptionists. Mission registration and information, mission completion and rewards, material sales, material trade, and registration. Jacob looked at the queue in front of the registration counter, which was the shortest, and joined them as he waited for his turn. Jacob observed the person at the very front, and he was answering the questions of the receptionist as she noted them down on a paper. After the questioning was done, she handed him the paper and directed him toward the stairs not far away from the counter, and he headed toward the second floor. After waiting for 15 minutes, it was finally Jacob's turn. The receptionist was a pale-skinned beauty with long black hair and sharp eyes. Any man couldn't resist her invisible charm. First and last name, she said impassively, as she didn't glance at Jacob and kept her eye on the registration form. It was her daily job, so she cared little about who took the test since there wasn't anything worth seeing in this countryside town. Jacob also impassively answered. Jacob Steve. He didn't hide his name since he wasn't a wanted criminal or any refuge, so it wasn't worth hiding. She jotted it down before she called again. Age and gender. Male, 24. Citizenship. Gloria Country, Rain Town. Please show me your identity proof. Jacob had already seen the person before him giving an identity proof, which looked like the identity card he found in Decker's possessions. He coolly said, I lost it. The receptionist finally tilted her head and looked at Jacob. Her eyes dilated slightly at seeing such a handsome man in this town. She said with a hint of gentleness, Sir, if you didn't have any identity proof, you have to pay 10 times the registration fee. Jacob's eyes flashed for a moment. 1 gold coin. She nodded. Yes, the registration fee is 10 silver coins, but without any identity proof, you have to pay the penalty. Come on, man, if you didn't have money, get out of the way. A burly with average height sneered impatiently. Jacob didn't retort and took out a gold coin from his pocket and put it on the counter. Thank you for your trouble. He had 20 gold coins from Decker, and now 19 were left. The receptionist smiled and received the gold coin. Before she filled the identity section, the man behind Jacob also showed an embarrassed smile, but he didn't dare to speak anymore. He was silently afraid that Jacob would take revenge. Anyone who could take out a gold coin wasn't someone ordinary in the Rain Town. The receptionist handed Jacob a paper with his information and said with a smile, Please go to the second floor, where an examiner will test your strength and allocate you a corresponding mercenary rank. Thanks. Jacob received the form and headed toward the second floor, minding his own business. When it was finally the burly man's turn, the receptionist's expression turned stony again as she said, 50 silver coins first. The burly man's face fell, and he knew he will have to pay the price for his foul mouth since he can't cause trouble for the managing staff, or he could just forget about the mercenary license. Chapter 54 Star Mercenary Agency, 2. The floor was also the same size as the first floor, but there weren't any desks or tables, but typical training equipment, a fighting ring, and an eye-catching black pillar with a dark screen on the top. Jacob noticed all the people before him were gathering around that dark pillar, and there was a tall, muscular man standing beside the black pillar. As he headed the same way, he saw the tall man take the form of a dark-skinned person, and he said coolly, Punch with your full strength. Anything lower than 100 kilograms force is failed. You'll get 2 chances, and your fee will not be refunded if you failed. The dark-skinned person nodded since he already knows the rules of Star Mercenary Agency's entry test. Everyone watched with great interest. Some veteran mercenaries were also present to rope in promising newcomers. Many mercenary teams scout and recruited their members this way. The dark-skinned man punched with full power, and his vibrant punch landed on the dark pillar. Everyone looked at the top screen, and a string of numbers appeared. 98. The examiner nonchalantly uttered, Last chance. The dark-skinned man's face heated when he felt those gazes filled with ridicule. He took a deep breath before he punched again with everything he had. A new number appeared on the dark screen, 95. Next. The examiner didn't even look at the dark-skinned man who seemed to have lost his soul. The next person entered and moved toward the black pillar with an anxious face. In the end, he only managed to score 84 and 87, which meant he also failed. Jacob remained uninterested in other participants and waited for his turn silently. At this moment, a tall woman with 5.11 height, an oval face, slender waist, and long legs wearing tight garments moved forward. The examiner's eyes lit up, seeing this woman's long legs and big bosom. He smiled lewdly as he said, "Sugar, don't break your hand here. If you failed, you can always look for me. I'll support you." "Humph, asshole." The woman snorted coldly with contempt. The examiner didn't mind, and his smile widened as he looked at her form. "Rosalia, huh? A thorny rose indeed." Rosalia completely ignored everyone's coarse expressions and let loose a punch with an angry shout. Bang! Everyone looked at the dark screen without any high expectation, but what appeared made many scalps tingle with dread. 132. What? The examiner's eyes widened as his view of this woman changed in an instant, and many others. If they see her as an easy and delicate prey before, now they didn't dare to underestimate her anymore. This much strength can't achieve just by playing hunter, but only with years of practice. However, the show still wasn't over. She suddenly moved her voluptuous hips and struck the black pillar with her long leg, which created a booming sound. Another number appeared, which shocked everyone. 201. The examiner finally spoke with a hint of enthusiasm. "Rosalia Lyon, rank D mercenary. Welcome to the Star Mercenary Agency." Rosalia gave him a dead stare and asked, "Where can I get my license?" The examiner didn't seem flustered at all, but he also didn't show any strange expressions anymore. He smiled as he started to write down on her form and then stamped it with a star stamp. He handed her the form and said, "Go to the 3rd floor. You can get your Star Mercenary license after handing this form." Rosalia took the form and headed toward the 3rd floor without giving anyone a second glance. She even ignored those mercenaries who came to invite her to their teams. Next, the examiner continued the test. After Rosalia, no one passed the test, and then it was Jacob's turn. The examiner nonchalantly repeated himself and signaled him to start. Another pretty boy wanted to show off, but the poor thing chose the wrong place. He sneered inwardly as he looked at Jacob's appearance. Although he was tall and muscular, he didn't look anything special from other experts' perspective. Jacob suddenly asked impassively, "I heard the higher ones ranked, the more benefits they'll get from the Star Mercenary Agency, right?" The examiner plainly replied, "Yes." Jacob merely nodded and took a boxer's stance before he performed a hammer strike with 50% of his power. The examiner naturally knows about knight boxing, which was commonly used among the knights. Is he from a knight family? His eyes narrowed slightly. This time, he seemed extremely interested in Jacob's strength as he looked at the screen. 464. Everyone was flabbergasted by that number and looked at the silver hair, Jacob as if they were looking at a monster. Even the examiner felt his heart palpitate seeing that number since it was almost equivalent to his own. "I don't want to use the second chance, is that okay?" Jacob calmly looked at the examiner. "If I used my full power, I'm afraid it will draw unwanted attention," Jacob mused. He also got the general idea of just how strong he was. Examiner took a deep breath and solemnly nodded. "Jacob Steve, rank C mercenary. Welcome to the Star Mercenary Agency." He wrote his evaluation and handed him his form, but he whispered something in his ear that only Jacob heard. "I'm the vice leader of this branch, Ralph. A word of advice, don't join any mercenary team in Raintown. Visit in 8 days. I'll introduce you to the agency leader." Jacob received the form showing no expression. Ralph winked meaningfully at Jacob before he continued the test. "Agency leader, huh? If I have time I might," Jacob sneered inwardly, completely talking Ralph's words as wind. He simply didn't care about anything except the identity of a star mercenary and their items. Nothing interests him, especially working for someone else while they reap the benefits of his hard labor. He had played this game many times in his past life. Chapter 55 Mercenary Ranks. On the 3rd floor, there were another counter, tables, and seats. Jacob spotted Rosalia on a table in one corner, and she was the only one present on this floor. She was waiting for that mercenary license. She also noticed Jacob and her eyes flashed, but she didn't react in any way and remained aloof. Jacob also minded his own business and headed toward the counter, where another beautiful receptionist was sitting and reading a book. She heard Jacob's footsteps and looked over. She smiled and greeted, "Good day, sir. Congratulations on passing the entry test. May I have your registration form?" Jacob nodded in greeting and handed her the paper in his hand. However, the receptionist's expression suddenly changed when she was C rank on the form and exclaimed, "C rank from the start?" Her voice was quite loud, which was clearly heard by Rosalia, and her eyes were also wide with astonishment as she looked at the silver hair man impassively standing in front of the counter. She was quite arrogant with the D rank, but even she knew the threshold for receiving C rank directly was 450 kg plus force, and it wasn't something easy to achieve. In the Star Mercenary Agency, there were 6 ranks, F, E, D, C, B, and A respectively. The lowest rank F was for those who had only 100 kilograms of force, while the E was for those with force above 150, while D was for those with above 200. Even D-rank mercenaries were respected everywhere they go because they could be considered at the peak of the uncommon rank fighters. While from C rank to A rank, these ranks were for those fighters who can fight with rare rank species. The threshold for AC rank was 450 plus, and these mercenaries were treated like nobles in the humane kingdom, and they all have prominent positions. Just like the leader and vice leader of this Rain Town branch were C rank mercenaries. As for B rank, the threshold was 1000 kg plus force, and there weren't even 10 presents in the humane kingdom, and every one of them were monsters in human skin because they can fight with top rare rank beasts. Lastly, in the A rank, the threshold was 10,000 kg plus force, and these rank mercenaries were something only those top of the list rare races which rules the rare region could have. That was why the C rank was respected in the entire humane kingdom, and they have many privileges of nobles, and no one dared to provoke them. Jacob also knew this, and that was why he wanted this rank, so he didn't have to worry about moving around or acquiring anything from the mercenary agency. If he wanted, he could pass the B rank mercenary trial, but it would be too high profile, and he would have appeared on some people's kill list thereupon. So, C rank was perfect for him, and no one would mess with him easily. This will also spare him the trouble to deal with those annoying flies who will come after him for his wealth. Just like a few moments ago, when he was heading up, no one dared to approach him for recruitment because they didn't have the strength to talk equally with him. One had to know there was only one mercenary team with a C rank leader who was active in the Rain Town. Furthermore, Jacob didn't use his second chance, which gave him another veil of mystery, and those people have tread careful with him now, just like Ralph, who didn't act arrogantly in front of Jacob and politely invite him. The receptionist finally snapped out of her stupor, and her tone became extremely respectful. "Please wait. I'll arrange your Star Mercenary license in 15 minutes. Jacob smiled faintly and nodded. "I'll be great, thank you." With that, he also sat at another table and watched the receptionist hastily entering the door behind her counter. "Finally, I can move freely now without having to worry about my identity. As for that B rank, I have to wait to exit the humane kingdom and took the test in the rare region. A rank is still far from me, and it also made it clear there are far more powerful existences out there, and being invincible among humans means nothing. My goal should be those hegemonies at Epic region." Jacob mused as he made plans for his future. His eyes suddenly flashed as he looked toward the person who has suddenly joined him at his table. This person was none other than Rosalia. Jacob impassively looked at the fierce beauty in front of him, and he had to admit that if she was in his previous world, she would be a top model. But those models were nothing to him back then. As long as he wanted, they would jump into his bed. He said impassively, "You want something?" Rosalia was stunned for a moment. She suddenly felt this man's gaze differed completely from others, and it felt like in his eyes she was nothing but skin and bones. She bit her lips and said, "Are you really a C-rank mercenary?" "That's why they said." He answered with a shrugged shoulder. She took a deep breath, and she said with deep resolve, Team up with me." Jacob felt quite amusing when he saw her forced expression. It was like someone had beaten her to say this. But he didn't reject her instantly and question back. "Why would I?" Rosalia suddenly felt vexed by Jacob's attitude. She pursed her lips and said, "I want to gain a foothold in this place, and to do so, I want someone like you by my side. Besides, teaming up with me won't be a bad thing since you know I just passed the test with you, and you won't have to worry about me approaching you with ulterior motives." Jacob curled his lips. "That's what you said." She suddenly lost her temper and stood up from her seat. "Humph, I'll make you regret your decision. Don't think you're invincible just because you're a C-rank mercenary." Before it was she who showed temper and attitude everywhere she goes, but it was the first time something showed her attitude and looked down on her. How could she take it? "I believed you." Jacob merely scoffed, watching her stomping away. Chapter 56 C-rank mercenary, 1. Jacob didn't want to entangle with Rosalia even if she offered herself to him because that woman had a peculiar attitude that can't be established by a humble background, and only those who have lived their life in luxury and prosperity have this kind of attitude. She was also quite a short temper and wasn't good at requesting, which made it clearer that she was used to getting whatever she wanted with a single order. This made her background even more obvious. Most importantly, the Star Mercenary Agency didn't have absolute records on who registered with them and how many times they can be registered with different names. This was the biggest loophole in this system. As long as you can pay the price, you can take the test and get another identity. Although Jacob wasn't sure if this was deliberately left or the agency didn't care about it. But after mulling over it for some time, he concluded that a hegemony like the Zodiac Taurus Bank won't leave this kind of loophole without any reason. There had to be some kind of deeper meaning behind it. That was why he didn't even believe Rosalia's word for a second that she has taken the test here and was here to get a foothold in Rain Town. She had some ulterior motive, and if he decided to team up with her, he might get involved in something he didn't want. Besides, he wasn't planning on teaming up with anyone, as a matter of fact. Even if Rosalia was good at acting, he would have still rejected her no matter what she offered him. At this point, nothing interested him except anything that was related to the cursed immortality. While he was deep in thought and waiting for that license, another man appeared on the 3rd floor, which also meant he had passed the test. Surprisingly, it was the burly man who picked on Jacob at the registration counter on the 1st floor. When saw Jacob, he was startled for a moment before his eyes landed on Rosalia, who was scowling at Jacob, and his eyes flashed with rapture. He first goes to the counter. The receptionist was already back to her position as she glanced at Jacob now and then before she noticed that man coming in her way with a big smile. She greeted him like before, but she was somewhat cold, and when she looked at the man's form, there was F rank, which means he just barely pass. She told him to wait like everyone else and headed toward the door behind again. The burly man's name was Luca, and he first went to Jacob and smiled apologetically. "Brother, I'm sorry about the way I spoke with you in the line. I hope you don't take it to heart. Congratulations on passing the test. What's your rank?" Jacob gave him a death glare and said, "Don't disturb me." Luca's expression fell slightly, but he wasn't interested in Jacob at all. He was just making sure he won't find trouble with him for what happened. Ignoring Jacob, he quickly moved toward Rosalia, and she was what he was truly interested in. He smiled brightly as he was about to strike a conversion with her when she stared at him with killing intent as she uttered viciously, "Scram, or I'll break your teeth in 5 seconds." Luca felt a sudden chill on his spine, and he suddenly felt this woman was extremely dangerous, so he quickly fled and sat down on the corner without making any noise. He suddenly felt he was in the presence of wolves. At this moment, the receptionist appeared again, but she didn't appear behind her counter but in the hall, from another door, which drew everyone's attention. She approached Jacob with a smile as she said, "Sir, please follow me." Jacob looked meaningfully at her before he nodded and followed her toward the room in Rosalia and Lux's peculiar gazes. The room was only medium size, and there was a table and chairs where a middle-aged man was sitting on the other side. When he saw Jacob enter, he stood up and said attentively, "It's my pleasure to meet with Mr. Jacob. Please take a seat. Thanks for the trouble, Nyla. Please give us the room." Nyla nodded and entered another door, which led to her counter. Jacob calmly sat in front of this middle-aged man with a short beard. The middle-aged man said with a smile, "My name is Tudor, and I'm the registration manager of this branch. Your Star Mercenary license is ready, but since you've passed the C-rank test, there's something we need to discuss before I handed you your license. I hope you understand it's a protocol." "Go on." Jacob nodded. Tudor explained, "You might have heard of the ranks of mercenaries, right?" "Yes." "Then it would be easy to explain. You see, the D, E, and F ranks are very common, and you can have as many licenses of such ranks as you want. I'm sure you have noticed this loophole already." Tudor smiled meaningfully. Jacob's eyes flashed and nodded. "Indeed." Tudor continued, "But from C rank to a rank, it wasn't the case, and we won't issue the same rank license more than once, and it'll be permanently registered within our database." "Are you implying that you guys can tell if I took another test somewhere else, and I won't be able to forge another identity of C-rank mercenary? Is this also the test to see if I'm first-time registering with the agency as well?" Jacob quickly got the point. Tudor was extremely happy to deal with such a person and nodded. "Yes, it's indeed the case because a C-rank mercenary has special privileges, and we can't have others exploit the identity loophole on this rank. Although, the agency didn't care about C rank as well. But because of humans' limited ability, they have agreed to arrange this process which was supposed to take place at B rank. However, the benefits are still nothing compared to the B rank, but they're still better than nothing, and they were only placed for the good of humanity and to strengthen it, and the royal family had a big part in it." Chapter 57 C-Rank Mercenary 2. Jacob could feel the pride behind Tudor's words for humanity. "What kind of benefits?" Jacob asked. He was only interested in benefits and didn't care who managed to put them there. Tudor suddenly took out a dark screen device from his drawer. Jacob's eyes contracted, seeing the dark screen device. It was exactly like the blood analysis device he had, but there weren't buttons on it, only a small pin. He felt extremely alarmed because he thought this device would reveal his real strength. He looked at Tudor and asked, "What is this?" Tudor didn't know Jacob had already come in contact with a high-tech device like this, so he explained. "This is the registration device for C-rank mercenaries. You just have to press your finger on the pin, and it'll record something called deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, in your blood and record it within the agency database. Afterward, you'll be a C-rank mercenary and enjoy the benefits without worrying about anything. Just don't try to register with another branch at C rank, or you'll get caught by this DNA recorder." Fuck, I knew the technology of humans in the uncommon region didn't match with Deca. But I never thought those from the higher regions will have such devices that can record DNA as well. This agency really has prominent roots. Jacob cursed inwardly as he looked at the DNA recorder. He suddenly regretted his decision to get C rank from the start. If he had known they even know the DNA, he would never risk it. Because he wasn't sure after he started to follow the cursed immortality, his DNA might get changed, and if someone checked they might find something and expose his identity and secret. However, it was just his hypothesis. He had to be absolutely sure, he suddenly thought. Cursed immortality. The white book appeared right between him and Tudor, who didn't detect it at all. Jacob quickly asked, "I knew you heard everything. Tell me, can they find you out by my DNA or anything that can draw unwanted attention?" Immortica wrote, He, I can't answer that." Jacob cussed before he changed his question. "Can heart essence change my DNA with injections?" "No, for the time being. Besides, they can't find anything from your DNA. Are you an idiot? Just how many species are far more abnormal than you exist in this world? How could they suspect anything?" Jacob sighed in relief and looked at Tudor. He was waiting for Jacob's answer. Tudor knew no one wanted to give away something that can track them down, especially those who wanted to be mysterious and didn't want their identity exposed. If Jacob decided to back down, he would allocate him a D-rank license without any demands. However, Jacob suddenly moved his finger and pressed it on the pin. The screen suddenly lit up, and 2 words appeared: registration successful. Tudor smiled and put the DNA recorder away and said, "Congratulations, you're officially a C-rank mercenary." He then took out an envelope and put it in front of Jacob. He said, "In this envelope is your C-rank license, as well as the detail about your bank account in Zodiac Taurus Bank." Jacob cocked an eyebrow. "Bank account in Zodiac Taurus Bank?" Tudor nodded with a smile. "Yes, this is one of the privileges of C-rank mercenaries. They'll all get an account of their name after registration. You can use your mercenary card and special account code to get access to your account. Not only that, after you pass the C-rank test, you're rewarded with 100 gold coins, which had already been transferred to your account. Every month you'll receive 1 gold coin salary in your account. You can also use your bank account to pay for your purchases in any agency branch or receive the money in the account directly. You don't need to go to the bank directly. Quite convenient, right?" This process was too familiar to Jacob, and he suddenly felt this was a good thing to have an account with the Zodiac Taurus Bank since it was the only bank here. He nodded. Convenient indeed. Anything else? Tudor noticed Jacob's uninterested expression and find it quite strange, since this process was only known to nobles, and it was also clear that Jacob has just registered with them. The DNA test just made it apparent. "Nonetheless," he answered, "the other thing is you'll get a 5% discount on your purchases in any agency branch. And you don't have to get in line to receive or submit any missions. Directly come to the 3rd floor and your business will be dealt with instantly. Lastly, if you want a C-rank mission, look for Nyla. We don't post them on the mission board. And if you have any complaints, approach the vice leader or leader, they'll prioritize you. That's all." Jacob nodded. The C-rank mercenary was indeed a lucrative position, that was for sure, and he got many annoying things out of the way just by becoming one. "Thank you for your trouble." Jacob picked up the envelope and stand up to take his leave. Tudor also stood up and said when Jacob was about to leave, "I just have the last thing to say. It's more of a personal request." Jacob halted his step and looked at Tudor while his hand was on the door handle. Tudor took a deep breath and said, "Please look out for your own kind." He bowed thereafter. Jacob felt this guy was really a patriot. He coolly said before he left, "It's not a promise." Tudor smiled wryly. Sigh. At least he didn't reject me directly. Jacob put the envelope into his shirt pocket, while he actually put it inside the infinity pendant. Outside, he noticed another man has appeared, and he was happily chatting with Luca. Rosalia was the first to notice Jacob and frowned. Jacob ignored everyone and again appeared in front of Nyla. He said calmly, "I want to look at C-rank missions." Chapter 58 Town Lord. Inside the Lord's mansion. The Town Lord, Kieran, was standing in front of a seated beauty with an agitated expression on his somewhat wrinkled face. Kieran spoke politely despite being the Town Lord. "Lady Jennifer, how are your injuries?" This beauty was indeed Gus's sister Jennifer, who escaped from the Wolf King chase and found her way back to Rain Town with some minor injuries. Jennifer replied impassively, "I'm fine. Thank you for asking, Lord Kieran. But I need to know if you found anything about my brother's whereabouts or Lady Kiana." Kieran's expression clouded at hearing this and thought resentfully, "Bitch, you clearly knew what would have happened to them since you said there was a Wolf King. But you insist on putting this facade and turning the trouble on my way." He was extremely resentful and horrified after he heard there was a Wolf King on the Dark Wolf Ridge. But he was more afraid of the Baron of Gloria's country because it was 95% possible that Gus was dead, and he had to suffer the backlash from the Baron for this. However, he had to deal with the Wolf King first before giving an explanation to Baron. He knew that as long as he could present the Wolf King's head to the Baron, he might escape the disaster with minimum losses. But he also knew to kill the Wolf King, he needed to hire C-rank mercenaries and not just 1 but 3 or 5, which will also cost him a fortune, since hiring those C-rank mercenaries wasn't cheap. But what can he do? If he didn't do something, even if the Baron didn't demolish his Rain Town, those wolves might. However, Jennifer was giving him more headaches with her princess attitude and making things difficult for him. She just insisted on searching for Gus, despite knowing their possible ending. Kieran said with a forced smile, "I'm afraid we'll be only sending our men to their death if there's really a Wolf King." Jennifer narrowed her eyes. "Are you implying I'm lying? Or those commoners' lives are more important than my brother and friend?" Kieran felt unhappy inwardly, but he remained polite. "Milady, I know you're worried about your loved ones, but we have to send some powerful people. What if we found the young lord, but they drag him down? We can't have that, right?" Jennifer nodded. "Yes, you are right. Issue a mission in the mercenary agency to arrange a search party. Also, please send a letter to my father about what happened here. He'll help you find my brother." Kieran nodded. "I have already taken care of the mission, milady, and sent a messenger pigeon to Lord Baron as well. We'll get Lord's response in a week." Jennifer showed a joyful expression. "Thank you. I'll remember your favor. Please don't jest. It's something I should do. I'll take my leave now. Please rest easy, my lady. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Kieran bowed slightly before he left the room. The moment Kieran left the room, Jennifer's pitiful expression suddenly turned cold, and her lips curled upward. "It seemed those people aren't simple to even arrange a Wolf King to get rid of my brother. The title of Baron will be mine as long as I do what they say." Kieran appeared in the hall with an exhausted face, without knowing about Jennifer's hidden motives. At this moment, an old man with grey hair and wearing butler clothes appeared. He bowed slightly and said, "My lord, I have something interesting to report." Kieran smiled seeing the old man and said, "Uncle Harland, how many times do I have told you that you didn't need to act courteously when we're alone?" Harland smiled and merely said, "Please don't. I'm merely a servant of the house, Taran. I don't deserve such a privilege." Kieran smiled wryly. "You're as stubborn as my father when it comes to manners, aren't you? Please tell me the important report." Harland said, "My lord, I just received the news that a new C-rank mercenary has appeared in our town." Kieran's expression suddenly changed and quickly asked, "Are you sure? Is he from our town?" Kieran knew if this C-rank mercenary was a resident of Rain Town, he didn't need to worry about backlash from Baron because no one would be foolish enough to move against a hometown of C-rank mercenary. At least not a Baron-ranked noble. Harland replied, "We don't know yet, but according to our sources his appearance is new, and he just recently appeared in our town and rent a house at the town's edge. Not only that, he seemed to be extremely mysterious because he only used one move to achieve the C rank. I'm afraid some people might make a move, especially the Golden Claw team leader. That fellow is quite cunning and won't let such a person roam free on his turf." Kieran's expression turned somewhat ugly when he heard the last sentence and couldn't help but gnashed his teeth. That ungrateful scum has forgotten the benefits he received from us, and now he didn't even give me face after becoming famous. I want you to approach this new C-rank mercenary personally before that scum had the chance and offer our congratulation gift and invite him to our house, Taran. As long as he agreed to give us his protection, anything is open for negotiation. If he didn't agree, don't push the topic, just form a good relationship with him. We had already tried controlling a C-rank mercenary and look, we only brought up a snake in our backyard. Harland sighed as he remembered the past and nodded. I'll deal with it personally. Don't worry, my lord. But that mercenary is quite something. It appeared he took a C-rank mission right after receiving his license and left the town. Now no one could approach him until he gets back. Kieran frowned. Then keep an eye on his return and make a move instantly. I don't think that arrogant prick would resist the allure of hunting a wolf king and wait for him. Chapter 59 Visiting the Blacksmith. While the news of a new C-rank mercenary continued to spread in the Rain Town and some closer powers to it, the person in question who caused this big ripple was cooking leisurely. Jacob had indeed taken a hunting mission and left the town, but it was only because he wanted others to believe this and won't bother him. Although C-rank wasn't much, they were still respected figures by humans, and he knew if he wanted to avoid those annoying figures, he had to leave this place in their eyes. It was extremely easy to sneak back with his speed, and no one would bother him anymore. He wasn't planning to show himself until he was done absorbing the 2 heart essences he had prepared. It won't be too late to go on hunting to collect more heart essence at that time. Furthermore, Jacob had seen the Wolf King hunting request in the C rank missions, and he could guess Jennifer had returned alive since only she managed to escape that day. Only she could report this back, and he wasn't worried at all because only bones would be left of the Wolf King right now. He had already got the most of it and wasn't interested in that reward that would put him in the spotlight. Just the C rank fame was enough for him. Time passed, and in a flash, it was the night of the 3rd day since Jacob has become a C rank mercenary. Right at this moment, the door of Isaac's smithery was pushed open and Jacob entered the familiar interior. Isaac was hammering an iron plate with a sweated face when he heard the doorbell and saw Jacob. Isaac smiled as he put the hammer down and said, "You're finally here. I almost thought you have forgotten our meeting." Jacob was training and eating for these past 2 days in his house, and only leave secretly at this hour since it would reveal his whereabouts to others. He had already noticed some people loitering around his house in these 2 days, so he was even more vigilant to show himself. "Heh, some flies delay me. Are my things ready?" Jacob chuckled. Isaac didn't take Jacob's words seriously and headed toward the back door and shortly after returned with a big box in his hand. He put the box in front of Jacob and said, "You can check them." Jacob didn't stand on ceremony and opened the box. He saw the shining steel parts of the distillation equipment. After examining them, he found nothing out of the place and nodded in satisfaction. He handed the reaming 5 silver coins to Isaac and said, "Good work." Isaac smiled contently and received the silver before he asked, "Do you want to forge anything else?" He clearly remembered Jacob had said he would give more orders if he liked his work, and he looked forward to Jacob's designs. They were unique and exquisite. Jacob looked meaningfully at Isaac. "Although he could forge this with ordinary steel, for the parts of a gun it won't be enough, and I don't know if this town had ordnance steel or something like it. That Colt rifle was made from something like carbon steel, which causes its fragility. I still knew nothing about the natural minerals of this world, nor did they have any books." Jacob asked Isaac, "If you want to forge for me, I have to know, what is the strongest metal you have and what is its melting point?" Isaac was surprised by Jacob's question and answered, "I have around 10 kg of graphite steel. As for its melting point, it's around 4,000 to 4,500 degrees Celsius. But it's quite expensive if you want to use it to forge." Jacob's eyes lit up. "This will do." "How expensive?" he asked. Isaac replied, 1 gram of graphite steel for 2 silver coins, and I'll charge 1 gold coin for my service." "It's indeed expensive, but I have coins to spare. If I can change some parts of the revolver and new bullets to make it deadlier and change the skeleton of the Colt rifle and its bullets, it should be enough for a while. As for creating model guns, I need my lab, which I can't have at this moment." Jacob picked up the notebook and drew parts he needed to further increase his 2 firearms. Isaac was also absorbed in those small exquisite parts. Jacob was drawing with significant details. After drawing, Jacob gave it to Isaac and explained, "Forge everything with graphite steel except these shells and heads. Use bronze and carbon for casing and head." Isaac looked at the bullet designs and exclaimed, "Isn't that ammo? You know how to create firearms." Jacob smiled, "I just know how to create ammunition. As for other parts, they're for something else. So, how is it can you create these small bullets?" Isaac was shocked this time because he knew those gunsmiths that can create ammunition weren't something a small blacksmith like him could compare with, and Jacob's identity became even more mysterious in his eyes at this moment. He said in embarrassment, "Sir, these bullet parts are really quite difficult to create, but as long as I can create a mold, it wouldn't be difficult. But I'm afraid it would take me more time to create them." Jacob coolly replied, "I'll draw you these 2 mold designs as well, but you have to give the first 2 molds to me for free, and you have to give me a 40% discount on bullet parts, and those mold designs would be yours to use however you wish." Isaac was shocked because he understood those bullet molds were even more precious, and with them, he could have an endless bullet stream. which he could sell to the mercenary guild and increase his business to an unimaginable height. "We have a deal." He agreed without any hesitation because Jacob's bullets looked far more precious than normal bullets, so paying this small price was nothing. Chapter 60 at 9.9%. After finalizing his deal with Isaac, Jacob sneakily returned to his house with the box full of distillation equipment. Now the question was where he was going to assemble them, and he still didn't forget about how he got spotted because of that smoke. Although he was in a human settlement now and there wasn't any problem with the smoke, he wasn't supposed to be in his house right at this moment, and if anyone found out he was there it would be cumbersome. Nevertheless, Jacob still decided to just assemble it in his backyard, which wasn't in others' view, and there was only the town wall a few tens of meters away from it, and as long as no one sneaked in that place they won't be able to see the smoke in the night. It took him half an hour to assemble the distillation equipment, and it wasn't too big or small. It was just right for his need. Thereupon, he put the dry woods he collected the other day in the furnace, and then took out the metal box with arrow-tail jaguar heart and blood in it. He chose to first absorb the uncommon animal heart essence because he was afraid if he first absorbed the Wolf King's heart essence, which was a rare beast, he would get fewer benefits. He still didn't know if it would affect his progress to absorb strong species heart essence or not, and how much he needed to reach 100%. But according to Immortality, he didn't need to worry about not getting the effect of any new species heart essence. As long as he absorbed the heart essence of new species, he'll indefinitely progress, and the only difference was in the tires of species. The higher the tire of a species was, the faster he'll progress. After closing the lid and making sure that everything was in order, enter the house again and waited like before, and he was also keeping an eye on any intruder or some curious prick. However, in 8 hours, nothing out of ordinary happened, and the distillation process went smoothly without a hitch. Sun was also rising, so he covered the equipment with an old cloth and returned inside with an iron beaker filled with crystalline heart essence. He took out the same metal syringe he used for his first injection. He was lucky to keep it inside his pendant, or it would be another problem to find another one like this in this place. Jacob was in the basement right now where Pighead was hiding, and he also chose this place because if anyone intruded, Pighead could handle them as long as they weren't above B-rank mercenary. After giving the order to Pighead, he sat bare chest and took a deep breath before he pierced that syringe in his heart. Not only he didn't feel any excessive pain like before, but as the arrow-tail jaguar's heart essence quickly get absorbed in his heart, and a cold sensation ran all over his veins. He didn't lose his consciousness and remained static while he felt that cold sensation all over his body and his wildly beating heart. On the inner wall of Jacob's mutated heart, the dark mark stirred, which had appeared after the carcass of blood-storming bug merged with his heart. The dark mark was becoming more and more apparent and taking a shape, but it was still too vague. This was the immortal mark, which was now becoming the cursed mark, according to the second level of the cursed heart emergence. This process continued for 2 hours before Jacob felt that sensation vanish, and he knew the entire heart essence was absorbed. But he could tell the change brought by this heart essence wasn't as apparent as the last time. Is this the difference between rare and uncommon species heart essence? Although my strength has increased, it's subtle. Jacob mumbled. Nevertheless, Jacob stood up from his spot and headed toward his small kitchen, since he felt hungry after this injection. He had already bought supplies, which would last him a few days. But they weren't nutritious since the meat was from common animals, but they taste all right. Afterward, Jacob again started to sharpen his fighting styles and get used to his increased strength until the night was upon him. He bathed before starting the distillation process again. Just like yesterday, he waited all night for the heart essence and then injected it into the basement. However, this time, Jacob felt slightly pained when the Dark Wolf King's heart essence entered his body. But it wasn't unbearable that he couldn't handle. Furthermore, he suddenly felt a large amount of sweat releasing from his pores and his hair grew at a fast pace like before. This time it took him 10 hours for this absorption before his amber eyes opened with a ghastly glint present deep within them. This Wolf King was stronger than Decker and I could feel my body reached some kind of wall, Jacob mused, and the very next moment he thought, cursed immortality. He quickly looked at the progress of the second level, and he was astonished. Second level, Turn immortal mark into cursed mark. Completion. 9.99%. Only 0.1% away from the 10%. Afterward, I would have to again eat like a lunatic to match my body with my heart. Well, it's not like I'm complaining. Jacob's lips curled upward. Although it was only his guess, but he presumed if he hit that pillar with his full strength, it would show 1,500 kilograms punching force. But he was still far away from matching an A-rank mercenary. Nevertheless, he knew as long as he continued to absorb the heart essence, a rank wasn't far, and he looked forward to it. At this moment, the scripture's writing changed and Jacob knew who it was, and he frowned. Your luck is not bad. It seemed you might awaken ability at the 100% of the second level.